Good morning. Mom. Morning. Oh God, there's some polite people here. Thanks very much. Good morning. Listen, welcome to today's Cyber Expo Ireland 2025. I think this is 8 years, is it? It seems like a long time ago since we started doing this, but it's been an incredible journey and adventure for ourselves. And really, a key part of the day from our point of view is setting the scene, and setting the scene in terms of where cyber is, really what the risks and threats and everything are. People go down to the expo floors upstairs for UC, Unified Communications, by the way. I've learned a lot in the last while, and cyber downstairs. But if you look at all those, you'll see that everything's evolving. Brands are new, the messaging is new. But a really important thing that we're hearing about a lot about these days, even my wife talks about it, and she says, "What did you say about me today on the stage?" So, is AI, and the challenges of AI, and the issues of AI, and the opportunities of AI. But we're delighted to have once again, and it's the incredible Paul C. Dwyer, who's travelled all the way from the north side here. And he does go on about it, but really I'd welcome Paul today to the stage to explain where things are, what's really out there, what's really happening. And a great presentation awaits you. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Michael. Cheers. So you're all very welcome. It's always great to be here. I do find these events fantastic because they're not just the people that want to learn, but you've got the people that have the knowledge in the room as well, and they can share. And one of the key successes of this event every year and why it has grown and why it's sustained is because people talk to each other and they network at this event. So I'll be talking about AI, I'll be talking about technology, all these kind of things, but this is about the human interaction and connection, and that's what's valuable about these events as well. So I'll kick off a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years and a bit in the industry. I was talking to someone earlier on about Novell NetWare and how I was in EC&E and went off and lived in Russia for a while and all that kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. Ended up from the technical side working in the other sides of cybersecurity, risk management and so on, working along law enforcement, military, different sectors all around the world. I've lived in Nigeria, I've lived in Russia, Kazakhstan for a while, all these different kind of places. So it's been a very interesting career. What I find myself representing here are essentially two brands, or three if I include myself, which is ICTTF. Many of you would know us from ICTTF because we run our own events, we have our own online academy and so on. We've nearly 50,000 members from around the world now, and that's all about sharing and empowering by sharing education and knowledge. But also, people go, oh, CRI? CRI is how I make a living, right? Cyber Risk International, we've been around since 2014, and happy to talk to you all about that downstairs later on, if you wish. And a lot of our business, and I will relate to it, is now powered by AI, but it's also powered by the likes of my friend Rupert, because another thing people know about me is animals and welfare of animals and so on like that. So that's the human context of Paul C. Dwyer. And now we can move on to the content. So you can be forgiven for thinking that the world is on the edge of something really, really bad. Unfortunately, the cybersecurity industry has been guilty of using FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, to market. And it's not a very effective way, and it's not a very good way of trying to convince people that they need your products by trying to scare the bejesus out of them. That's not really a great way of going. But if people understand they need your products, they need your services, that's completely different. And in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to explain why you need to talk to all of the people who have gone to the effort and work to put up these stands and everything downstairs, and what they can offer to help you with this challenge we've got. Michael briefly mentioned there the risks, the threats, and it rolls off the tongue, and we almost become desensitized to this. But let's even put cyber criminality into perspective at the moment. This year it's estimated to be worth $10.5 trillion. So when people go, why am I getting spam emails? Why am I getting text messages? Because this is a huge, huge underground economy, and it's a distributed economy. Made up of people who've never even met each other. They're leveraging innovation, technology, AI, all of these kind of things as well. They're entrepreneurs, they're innovators, and they are absolutely brilliant at what they do. Absolutely brilliant. And that gets right down into anything from cleaning the money to getting people to fall for a ruse and click on a link, or social engineering. They have all the skill bases, they pull it all together, and that is why they essentially represent what could arguably be the third biggest economy in the world, when you put it into perspective. That's unreal. And that's when people start getting into thinking things, well, is it just money on ransomware? Is it just money on fraud? Is it just money on X, Y, and Z? These are the official experts' numbers. So even if it's close to that.
Spain and Portugal ground to a halt on Monday after an Iberian Peninsula-wide blackout delivered a stark reminder of how dependent on power modern life is. While other countries in the world, most notably South Africa, have learned to cope with such blackouts, the scale of Monday's outage was rare in Europe. Here's how it caused chaos. The power failure at around midday saw people trapped in lifts and stuck in metro and train carriages. As electricity failed to return, evacuations took place through tunnels and on train tracks. Puerto Rican Ana Cordero was stranded on a train to Madrid for 3 hours with no information.
After, I would say, an hour, the battery died down of the train, and then that's it. The bathrooms weren't working, and so it's so stupid because everything was electronic, even to wash your hands. You couldn't, you had to press a button for it. It wasn't working.
Phone and internet signal came and went before dropping entirely. Unable to receive news through phones or the internet, people turned to car or analog radios, if they still had them. Roads turned to gridlock with traffic lights out, and people struggled to navigate without mapping apps to guide them. With cash machines and electronic payment systems down, many large supermarkets and stores closed. Stores quickly ran out of basic provisions, with others facing losses from products unable to be refrigerated. Some taxis refused to take passengers without cash. People like Albert Fernandez hunted for any trace of Wi-Fi signal outside an electronics store.
It kind of makes you realize how much we depend on just like electricity and just basic connections. It's actually something that we were talking before, just how connected we are and how dependent we are on technology. So it kind of makes you reflect how integral it is to our day-to-day life.
Among the hardest hit were people dependent on home medical units with finite backup power supplies and those using mobility devices such as wheelchairs. With weather fair across the area, the hunt has begun for the cause of the massive blackout. One of Europe's biggest ever power system collapses. Spanish grid operator Red Eléctrica ruled out a cyber attack, but Spain's High Court said it would open an investigation. The operator, in a statement on Monday night, pointed to a strong oscillation in the power flow, which triggered a very significant loss of generation. Analysts said the frequency of the grid dropped, triggering automatic emergency protocols. Data also shows solar generation, which accounted for the majority of Spain's electricity at the time, plunged by more than 50%. One industry source said there was not enough firm power, like gas, nuclear, and hydro storage, to handle the sudden fall. Another source with direct knowledge of the sector said the Spanish grid was running with little energy stored to act as a buffer to compensate for sudden changes in demand or supply.
So guys, that's a stark reminder of how dependent we are on technology, on critical infrastructure, that it's self-depends on technology, how we are dependent on the internet. Can Gen Z read a map? Does it need Google Maps? All these kind of things as well. So we got a stark reminder on many, many perspectives there, including what happened. Why was there a canned statement available within minutes to say it was a weather event? When on that day, if you had your geopolitical vision on and realized what was going on with Ukraine and understanding what's going on with San Javier Airport, which is where the United Nations have the communications hub, which is right in the middle of that, which is, if you realize perhaps the threat actor was maybe even China, because that's the day they moved into the Taiwan water, and all these distraction techniques. So you can go down the geopolitical road and see what was behind this from a nation-state perspective, but hopefully the investigation will come out in social clarity. That's not what I'm getting into about the root cause of this. It's the effect, the impact. That's why we have the NIS2 directive, Network Information Systems 2 directive, from October 18th last year. It's why it's become law and being transposed as law right across Europe. It's why we have the Digital Operational Resilience Act. It's why we have the UK Operational Resilience Framework from March 31st in the UK, because the leaders of the world and everybody else understands we are dependent on a digital society. and we have to be able to defend it and protect it and not just go, oh, I don't know, have you got an analog radio when something goes wrong? This is all about resilience. Resilience is shit will happen, what can you do when it happens? That's what resilience is. And we need to be able to deal with it when it happens. It's not all about protect mode and thinking nothing else will happen. We have these geopolitical flashpoints. There's so much going on in the world. You know, you've got what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in Pakistan. I've mentioned Taiwan already. You've even got the Iran, US. You have these proxy threat factors as well coming in from there. There's so much hostile, rogue, aggressive behavior going on. You want to be living under a rock to think that there isn't a cyber and digital aspect of this, and that the critical national infrastructure of all our countries and all the societies we depend on is not in the crosshairs of this, or will get caught up as collateral damage in the middle of this. So this isn't all about cyber criminals and making the 10.5 trillion. There's other motivations and there's other reasons why we should all be keeping our businesses and our sector as resilient as possible. We have this leader, what a muppet, who turns around and goes, wow, everything's computer. I mean, what's going on? I mean, so there's leaders out there that have not the best of intentions, shall we say, in relation to what's driving policy deregulation, the reverse of policy around things like AI and so on. The recent news that thousands of jobs have been let go and it's all going towards AI. Is this good? Is this bad? What does this really mean to the world? Everybody gets freaked out about singularity. AI is going to take over and become smarter than humans. Not while I'm around anyway. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime from that perspective, maybe on particular tasks, but that's about it. Now, in 2023, I was here on this stage and I was talking about Putin and I was talking about the threat actor that he is, and I used examples and cases, including the HSE in Ireland and how it was attacked by the Conti ransomware group, which is hand in glove in cooperation with Putin and the GRU and what is going on. Things have not changed. I mean, that's still a chilling statement. That was from the Russian ambassador basically saying to Ireland, you want to get involved? Because they're saying you're fair game if you support or say anything that we're not happy with. And that's literally, again, the ecosystem, the world, the environment that we operate in and operate our businesses and our systems in, whatever. This recent one, people may have heard of Scattered Spider, or they think they've heard of Scattered Spider. Scattered Spider are essentially a bunch of kids in America and the UK who have done some deals with the likes of the ransomware groups in Russia. And they have done some stuff for fun, and they've, you know, almost, I won't say lighthearted, but they've attacked things like casinos in Vegas and all that kind of stuff. But they wiped 700 million of the value of Marks and Spencer's. And that's far from over. But if we ever need a reason or a reminder of why it's important and why it is now a legal imperative to be able to prove how digital resilient your business is, well, that's it. That's not 700 million just gone off Marks and Spencer's. That's people's pensions that had invested in the shares of Marks and Spencer's. That's your data. They were holding data 6-7 years on people that had bought something 7 years ago. Why are they holding data for 7 years on you? Because you bought a shirt 7 years ago off them. And now you're getting emails to say, sorry, oops, we lost your data. Please be careful, don't click on links. I mean, if we ever want a case study, and I promise you I will do a presentation on the case study of poor digital resilience leadership, and I will be using that as an example, because that's piss poor. That's really, 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 if we ever want to see how leaders were just leaving it to the IT people and trying to cut costs and cut corners and everything else like that, and not taking on as the business imperative that it is to be able to control your business. Now, AI, we're all sick of the term. We all think AI is different things to different people. To some, it's ChatGPT. To some, it's DALL-E. To some, it's whatever. And they're using for all different kinds of reasons. And it is many, many different things to many, many different people. I often refer to it as intelligence augmentation because I hate the phrase AI. I hate the AI washing that goes on, and everybody thinks, oh, I'm AI powered now, or we're using AI to that, whatever. Are you really? Is that really AI? You know, and then you start getting into the pedantics of it. We also see almost like back in the day when you see people that maybe had discovered a music artist, and they thought, this is great, I love this music artist, but when that music artist gets discovered by everybody and goes mainstream, everybody then hates them and go, oh, I saw this on a post this morning on LinkedIn, some professor guy who's been working for 30 years in the world of AI is bitching and moaning that everybody's talking about AI now. I don't know. Anyway, we're getting on to AI, and we're getting on to the threat vectors, the bad guys. It's a double-edged sword. The bad guys are going to innovate. The bad guys are going to use it. The bad guys don't need to follow rules, policies, regulations. They have a motivation, let's say, for example, to make money. And they have tons and tons of money themselves to invest in projects. They run their businesses like high-tech startups. They do a fantastic job all around this area. And when you look at something like, for example, the example of the deep fake in Arab, I don't normally shame companies, but I will shame Arab or mention them for my own reasons, which I'm glad to tell you later. But anyway, Arab, one of the guys went onto a conference call, and everyone on that conference call was a deep fake video. Everybody. And he believed them. And he started to transfer the money, and he transferred it off to 5 different bank accounts, 15 transactions, 25 million. No other humans on the call. That was it. They had created deep fake videos, and if anybody's seen this stuff in operation, it's incredible. I mean, I was talking to a guy there recently who was interviewing people for a job, and everybody on the videos that were coming through were deep fakes. It was different voices, different accents, but it was a human being in front of them on the video call, trying to get the jobs remotely. So we all will come across this in our day-to-day. This isn't one mad extreme of Arab or whatever fallen victim to this, but this is what I mean by innovation, leveraging AI and the tools and techniques. And it's easy to do.
Hello everybody, it's Michael here, and you're all very welcome to Cyber Expo Ireland. And I just want to say before I introduce Paul.
You stopped there? We keep going. So what that was that was going to be a audio file of Michael's voice, and it's a pretty close comparison. It took about 2 minutes to generate online, and you can get the person to say anything they want at that point, and go through. So anybody who has a plan to carry out and do something that may involve false text messages or false voices or false videos, whatever, the tools are as amusing as they are effective to do this. And we've done lots and lots of case studies around that as well. When we were on prime time, and I had Fran McNulty who's sending in voice notes to Miriam McCallaghan talking about the fact that he'd been offered a job in the BBC and all that stuff, and people will fall for this stuff because it's very, very credible, very, very real. But this is the reality. The reality is that legislation is always going to be behind innovation, always. So if you're using a rule base or something like the NIS2 directive or DORA or something like that and saying, that's all we need to get to and we'll be grand, we'll be fine. That does not equal security, that certainly does not equal resilience. All of these rules, regulations and stuff have been written in the past. This area moves so fast, so you need to understand your own inherent risk levels, your own mitigation controls and levels of risk appetite that you have and what needs to be put in place. So don't get caught up or be fooled by thinking just because you're compliant, you're safe. You're certainly probably far from resilient, I would say. Now, I've mentioned and dropped a couple of acronyms there, the UK ORF, NIS2 Directive, and the EU DORA, Digital Operations Resilience Act. Now, let me give you some timelines on those. NIS2, October 18th, 2024, is meant to become law right across Europe. It's to be transposed, it's a directive, so it gets transposed. That means each member state has to make it a law in that country. So guess what? Ireland hasn't done that yet, right? That doesn't mean it's not happening, and it isn't effectively what people need to adhere to and up to that level. The whole heart of the NIS2 Act, resilience, digital resilience, and accountability and governance and oversight, all key parts, legal requirements under that. You have DORA, the Digital Operations Resilience Act. Like, I mean, arguably it was in 2 years before that, but January 17th, it became into effect right across 2025, right across Europe. Law, it's an act, it's the law right across Europe. We will see the lists of the ICT critical suppliers being identified and listed from July. We will see supervisory inspections probably happening in Q3, Q4 of this year. It's real, it's there, it's the new way of doing business. If you're in the financial sector or you supply service to them and you're not au fait with DORA, you are way behind, because they will be looking for the evidence of you that you have all of these things in place and that you can prove you have them in place. It is not good enough to go, oh, we're ISO 27001 certified. It is not good enough to say something like that. It's far deeper, far wider. And then we have the UK Operational Resilience Framework. March 31st, that came into play. It has very similar aspects of DORA. They are not officially aligned, but they are very similar. and probably a bit of a more pragmatic approach taken in many ways with the UK Operational Resilience Framework. So if you're a bank and you're operating in Europe and the UK, whatever, you essentially probably have 3 areas that you need to be falling under. And you don't want 3 separate silos of works, 3 separate solutions, 3 separate products, 3 separate areas of gathering evidence and so on like that. You want a unified, holistic approach to digital resilience. Because guess what? All of these end in one place, which is the boardroom. The boardroom is responsible for all of this. And there's personal accountability with all of this. This isn't about, it was the IT guy, it was Sally, the CISO or whatever. It's none of that. There is no blaming or finger pointing on this. It is the management board, the management of the organization are responsible for digital resilience. And all of this we have to do with the threat and benefits of artificial intelligence. So we have an interesting path ahead of us as we go forward. Talk a little bit more with Sador in a moment. Now this piece, probably can guess what I'm going to try and talk about now, which is if you went in to have your surgery performed by a specialist and this was the operating theatre, what's missing? It's trust. When you trust something, you make yourself vulnerable to it. So trust signals are very important in the digital world that we put them out there, because it's completely different than the way it used to be. So you need to be able to establish trust with your customers, with your clients, and so on in a completely different way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. So the example I tend to use is where we go from marble to mobile. So Revolut has over 40 million customers. Now going back in the day, how banks operated was they had the fiat system, and they had the gold bullion, and they had the marble floors, and they had the big fancy buildings and the big brass railings and all those kind of things to instill what? Trust. They had loads of money, you could depend on them, and their buildings, their facade, their whole piece was to intimidate and establish trust that you'd have in them. You'll find that same effect in the top legal companies still in Ireland and around the world. That is a technique. It's a marketing technique to establish what you're going to do, and you can trust them. So you put your wages into that bank. Is it going to be safe? Of course it is. It's backed by gold bullion, and look, they've got security guards standing there and all that kind of stuff or whatever, right? All of that. But how do you do that when it comes to a success story like Revolut, right? They have 40 million customers. Has anybody met anyone that ever worked there? Cool. Anyone met anyone that works there? Anybody that, sorry, just got distracted there for a second. Somebody called me. So you've got 40 million customers, no branches, no marble, no brass, all the good stuff that's put in place. So that is part of the big challenge. So there's lots we need to do around this space. So here's some key points. Trust is earned digitally but lost instantly. Trust is multidimensional. This includes privacy, security, the whole lot, and ethics. Younger generations have a different take on trust. They don't naturally trust the institutional older brands and buildings and banks that maybe a lot of us in this room may have grown up with. They trust the transparency, the agility and so on of other, if you're more organic and born on the internet type companies as well. And then of course you have the AI factor. I want to talk a little bit here about ethics before we go into this. So on the ethics side, I want you to remember the 3 B's of AI. Okay? And they are bias, blind spots, and bullshit, because this is one of the issues and challenges we have with AI, is that there's an awful lot of crap associated with it. You can't just go, oh, something's like, because what that's instilling then is a lack of trust, a lack of fear, and I want to talk about how we got around that. So when you're talking to vendors today, here are some questions if they talk about AI to you. Here are some questions that you want to hit them with. Sorry, go back here, change the slide. How is your AI trained and on what data? Okay, key question. You want to know what's going on to see if they know what they're talking about. Can you explain your AI's decision-making process? That, within the AI Act and the UK AI Act, is a legal requirement. So are you going to be able to do that? What controls are in place to prevent errors or misuse? Key to do that as well. How do you ensure your AI complies with regulations such as GDPR, EU AI Act? And why is that also very important? It's because that is what's going to hit the board or the management board of the companies. They are legally responsible. You can't just go, well, I bought an AI tool, I don't know what it's doing. Right? You have to know what it's doing. It's the law that you know what it's doing. it's doing with your customers' data, and it's doing with everything else along those bases. And finally, how do you protect the integrity and security of your AI models? And we've already seen this with poisoning of AI models and so on like that. Anybody who's used AI in the form of ChatGPT recently will be forgiven to think they're dealing with a confident drunk. Because a year ago, you would ask ChatGPT something, and it would come back, and relatively, the hallucination wasn't too bad. Hallucination is now off the scale. I've told people many different cases, story of this, where it will actually literally make up things, references, reference codes within systems, everything else like that. And when you question it with a follow-on prompt, it will double down, and it will double down again, just like a drunk at a party who wants to be right no matter what the cost is. And a quick example of that was I was doing a board briefing for the food sector. And before I went in, I said, can you tell me any case studies of major attacks on the food sector in Ireland? Absolutely. And it gave me the details of the attack on Dairy Gold. I said, that's great, because someone on the board, I think, used to work in Dairy Gold. He'll be able to resonate with that story. What happened? Told me what happened, told me which group was behind it, told me the fines that were imposed, everything else like that. How did I not hear about this? Opened another tab in Google, searched for it, couldn't find anything about it, went back into the tab in ChatGPT and said, did you make that up? Sorry, my bad. Literally, that's what it said to me. So hallucination, trust at your own peril, right, what's going on, your own risk. Now, here is my tips for vendors. You want to put out 5 trust flags so your customers will support you and will understand you. Transparency and explainability. No black box magic, Keith Barry salesmanship of what's going on. Just tell people, is it a RAG-based system? How does it work? Is it machine learning? What models does it use? Where's the data? All the basics, transparency, okay? Robust data governance. They are taking on you as a supplier, and they are responsible for what you're doing. You better provide them with assurance and confidence that you know what you're doing around data governance. And human oversight and control is fundamental, a key to success in implementing or using AI in any way. And I will overemphasize that many times. Resilience against adversarial attacks, and we see this again coming in on AI from different nation states and so on. And regulatory alignment and ethical use is really important, that they cover off those. So key questions for your vendors. Vendors, this is what you need to be telling people if you really want to gain trust in the environment we're in. So let's quickly finish up. We look at some of this piece around AI itself. It is a new weapon. For the bad guys, the adversaries that are coming for us, but it's also a shield that can be used as well. So, come up with some deep quotes there for you. The real conversation is intelligent augmentation, as I mentioned earlier on. How do we use it to make our people faster, our systems smarter, and our defenses more adaptive? This is the key way of looking at AI. It's not just a badge of honor, we use AI. Let's move from AI washing to AI worthiness. Where does it actually add measurable value, reduce risk, or accelerate recovery? That's key. That's key. Don't get caught up in the marketing hype bullshit of AI. It's a very effective tool. We use it in our own business models and everything else like that for lots of different kind of things. The AI defenders, cyber defenders empowered by AI just aren't reacting, they're anticipating. And look, you're not going to get AI that's tired, that's grumpy, that forgets things. Machine learning is so fast, everything else like that. It's a very effective tool to use in many ways within the organization. Self-healing networks. There is an overpromise a lot of the time around a lot of this AI stuff, and people think, well, it's okay, we don't need to worry about anything anymore. We got the AI. The AI is here, right? It doesn't work like that. Yeah, we're on the cusp of getting there. We already have self-patching systems and all those kind of things. So there's really cool stuff out there. And in 5 years, we may have networks that act like basically, the human immune system. And the more it gets affected, the stronger it gets, and it learns from it, and it's able to repair itself, make itself stronger, make itself better, and so on like that. So we're probably about 60 months away from that area as well. But don't get caught up in that AI overpromise that it's going to do everything for you on that. It's not magic, it's maths with a marketing department. At the end of the day, it's just some clever stuff, and that's what's happening. So another Confucius say, AI is just another weapon that can misfire. Don't confuse potential with readiness. The amount of people I'm talking to that go, it's okay, we got that AI thing, it's in, it's going to do everything, and blah, blah, blah. Prove it. Is it working? Is it ready? The promise is big. The promise is big, and the promise is real, but it has to be real. It has to get there. Okay, leadership. I'm going to sum up on leadership. This all boils down at the end of the day to what? Humans. We need to get the humans involved on this because the human layer is the most critical part of this. It's not whether you're going to have AI, it's whether you have the culture and governance to support it. If you lash AI into your environment and your ecosystem, you're going to regret it fairly quickly. Because how you're going to rewind and make sure that you're covering off laws, regulations, policies, and the culture. Remember, culture of an organization is driven by the policy of the organization. That policy is driven by the laws outside of the organization, in the environment, the country you're operating in, and so on, and the sector you're working in. So let me leave you with some takeaway point on this, as I know I'm just over time. The CISO, I said about the management board. So every management board needs to have some expertise that is going to help them with all of this. And whether that's your CISO or that's, and I say CISO and then I pause because CISOs can be many different things. So I often refer to them now as digital operational resilience officers. Officer, because that indicates it's to do with the board and the accountability, the oversight and governance and the responsibility that goes along with that. And so, for example, we've developed our own Digital Operation Resilience Officer course, and we're training Digital Operation Resilience Officers all over the world now, specifically in the financial sector a lot. Next week, I know some of you here are going to this next week, so that'd be great to get you on board and bring you through. And this is what it boils down to. Don't just go and grab technology until you understand it. Get educated. It has to come from the top. It has to come from the leadership, because the education will empower you to innovate, to get the best and benefits of intelligence augmentation, or as people like to call it, AI, and to move forward. Summary points is security is good. So you'll hear lots of people today talking about defense. You still need defense. You still need to get the bad guys out. But resilience is better. Okay? Resilience means when it goes wrong, you'll know it went wrong, you can respond, and you can recover on that. The resilience trifecta, we've got these three areas, okay? You've got governance. Do you know what the risks are? You've got capability. Do you have the tools and the people that you're going to meet here at this event? And you have agility. Can you move fast with AI and be able to do things that needs to be done and move in that environment? Or are you stagnated by leadership not understanding what's involved and so on in that area? My final slide, you'll be glad to know, as I know the stress of things overrunning by a few moments. As the lights go out, we need to think to ourselves as well that, these are the words of Mary Robinson, we must not become a society where rights and values are sacrificed in the name of technology or power. Be very careful with AI. Around the human right to privacy we have especially, and the decision making that it's doing around policies and those. And that's why those key elements are enshrined within the AI Act and the UK AI Act as well, because you're going to be responsible for it. And if you're just automating it out but don't understand how it's making a decision. Remember, that was one of my points. How is it making these decisions at the end of the day? But we'll finish off with Bono. The world is more malleable than you think, and it's waiting for you to hammer it into shape. We are creating the world now with AI. It's just a tool we're using to reinvent our services, to reinvent our offerings, and it's really important to be able to do that. So guys, my final reminder is to connect with humans. As we spend the day here, you're going to learn lots from a lot of the different speakers, the different panels, and so on. And this human interaction is really, really important. We can't just depend on, obviously, technology. It's very important that you build up the human network, and that the human network of trust, expertise, different experts, subject matter experts in different areas and so on like that, and be able to deal with that. I think my audio's gone again, or you would be listening to Michael again. Try Michael one more time, won't we? No?
Thank you, Paul. That was great. Now, before we go, I just want to say that I have it on authority that Mary did have a lamb, and in fact, its fleece was as white as snow. And I can tell you for a fact that I know that everywhere that Mary went, that lamb was sure to go.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much. Cheers. Thank you. Have a great day.